Let's go down to, I believe, the Charlotte airport is where Scott Grayson is on his way back from New Orleans, where the Eagles were plastered by the New Orleans Saints 48-7. And, Scott, you have the post-game videos posted on our website right now, 973ESPN.com. Was there anybody in the locker room to talk to?
Well, there were guys in the locker room. I think they were players. I think they had uniforms on in that game. But look, the way that the locker room is set up down there for such a massive building is amazing to me. The defense was kind of on one side and the offense was on the other. So you were kind of, and I know, Jeff, you could speak to some of this. You're kind of trying to look around and figure out, all right, who might be talking, who might be ready to talk, who's still just taking their time to try to, get dressed and everything. Mm-hmm. And, Nigel Bradham flat out declined to talk.
He flat out declined to play, so he might as well do that,
Fletcher Cox and Malcolm Jenkins both kind of ducked their way through the showers out a different exit, and that's just kind of the way it was for the Eagles defense, who, they didn't want to answer any questions, and to a certain extent, I think some of these guys may have not wanted to put their foot in their mouth and say something they'd regret moments later. So, it was interesting. I hadn't seen the locker room quite like that. Perhaps even going back to when Chip Kelly was there, it was brutal.
Like, did you sense a dissension between the two units? That kind of put your foot in the mouth.
No, I mean because they were. I didn't sense any of that. And the other thing I didn't sense was any finger pointing. I thought maybe we'd start seeing some of that. I didn't really sense that either. I just sensed a team that knew it got beat up and down the field and all around the city of New Orleans, and it just. And they were dejected because they can't figure out how to fix it. That's the biggest thing I got from these guys, was that they just can't figure out how to fix it. Some people want to point to the coaching. Some people want to point to the play. I just think ultimately they've got some big issues they got to figure out that go beyond something you just put your finger on.
Were you there when Malcolm Jenkins said something to the effect of you get what you put in?
No, I was not there when he said that, but I was trying to figure out with the offensive guys, particularly.
I thought the stuff that Zach Ertz was telling you guys that you have on our website, he was kind of insinuating that this is like internal.
I think so, and they can only go to that well of you have to look in the mirror so often. They've done that too much, in my opinion, and now I think they're starting to realize they've said that too much, and that's what I was trying to get at. These opening first quarters have been so bad offensively. Is it a matter of execution on game day, or is it, quite frankly, you're just not practicing well enough during the week to have those plays ready to go? And I don't think anybody would willingly go that far, publicly to say it was the practices, but I'm getting the sense that these guys are perhaps blaming the practices if you read between the lines.
Well, one thing that stood out to me is, as we talk about the offense, Scott, there was the 3rd and 2, and I think in the third quarter, I mean, the game's starting to get out of hand, but if the Eagles had scored a touchdown, maybe you start to say they're back in it. And it was the play where I think Carson overthrew Dallas Goedert on the right side. And on that play, which is a 3rd and 5, the route run by Golden Tate appeared to be like a fake screen because he didn't run anywhere. He just kind of stopped and then turned around quick, almost like a decoy on a screen. And I couldn't help but think, it's 3rd and 5. You have Golden Tate. He is a third down specialist. He has amazing career numbers at the Superdome, and that's what you drew up, a play to go to maybe either go to Goddard or someone else, but only to be a fake screen to Golden Tate. So I do wonder about the play calling here and what's going through Doug's head.
Oh, there's a lot of that I think you can go to. Look, first and foremost, why was Carson Wentz in the game in the fourth quarter? Here's your season. If you want to flush it down the toilet right away, go ahead and get him hurt in a game when you're down by 35 points. I didn't understand why he was still out there. Number one, you can go to even more than that. Why call a reverse to Golden Tate when there is absolutely no fear of a run play on the Saints defense? So that pass rush is coming hard as it was,
right?
And it gobbled him up for an 8-yard loss. You can go up and down all kinds of play calls there. And, I don't know what Doug's thinking, if he is even thinking right now, because there's just no rhythm. There's no rhyme or reason to any of the play calling. You have a guy like Golden Tate you just got. I'm getting him involved in the first series. perhaps even the first play of the game.
Yeah, that used to be a staple, right? Whenever they got a new guy, they would try to exploit him immediately, get the ball in his hands. Andy used to do that all the time.
Right, and there's just none of that. There's just nothing. I feel like Doug is lost. I just feel like he's lost, and somebody's got to try to blow a whistle to get him back over to the path somehow. Because right now it seems like he has no idea what he's doing with calling these plays with this. Because you could use injuries as an excuse on defense. I'll give you that. But on offense, they've got weapons. They've got the guys for the most part there. They don't have an A-list running back right now. But Josh Adams was doing the job in terms of yards per carry. Why? There's just be no excuse in terms of injuries. So it's got to be more than that on offense.
Yeah, you're right because, look, on the injuries on the defensive side, they gave up 48. Is it a surprise? Not necessarily. If they were fully healthy, we might say, man, New Orleans scored 48. But how is this defense, what's their excuse? How do they only score 7 against a defense that's not great, by the way?
No, and they made them look, as great as they made Drew Brees look yesterday, they made the Saints defense look pretty phenomenal too. I mean, the Eagles' first 3 offensive possessions, no first downs and an interception. You're going up against a team, and Jeff, you want to go back to play calling? Mm-hmm. I mean, there were some situations early in that game where I started thinking maybe Doug's going to go for this. It was 4th and 2 or something like that, and just to try to get something going or show your team you're back to being that aggressive guy you were last. What happened to him?
No, I think we're all wondering that.
Right, yeah. The Eagles defense very poor yesterday, but I'm having trouble keeping up and even figuring out the names of some of those guys out there in that secondary. The offense, I can name them all, and they had 7 points. It was awful yesterday. Carson Wentz, give me the mood of Wentz. Does this kid seem – you just said Peterson's lost. Does Wentz appear to be down the same lost path as Peterson right now?
In my opinion, Wentz is pressing. I feel like when I see Wentz out there, I see a guy who's so desperate to make a play to put his team on his back that's why he's taking some of the chances that resulted in 3 interceptions. Yeah. I just think he's trying to do too much right now. I think that perhaps, you look at why did he stay in the game? I wouldn't be surprised if he was lobbying Doug to keep him in the game. Because he just wanted to try to get something going with that offense. And I think right now that's the bottom line. Wentz is not staying within himself. He's stepping out of what he can do because he's trying to do too much to make everybody around him better. And he can't do that. He's got to stay within himself so everybody else can do their jobs. And if they're not doing their jobs, that's not his fault. Yeah. So right now he's got to fix that part of his game.
I agree. That was going to be my question to you, Josh. When I look at this, and I think I like to call this time period when the Eagles in particular are doing so terribly, and we've seen this in years past, right, where every narrative under the sun comes into play, and you just start picking apart everything to the point where you think the team is never going to win a game again, and I call that fishing season. We're all fishing for what the problem is. It's clearly the Eagles can win a game, but they clearly need Carson to play within himself and not think that he has to win the Super Bowl on every pass. The first interception was probably, to me, the clearest example of a guy trying to make a play where there wasn't and trying to do too much.
Absolutely. And, that was the thing that hurt the most about that interception was that it was on first down. Mm-hmm. That was a glorified punt. If that happened on 3rd down, I wouldn't have been disappointed probably. But on 1st down, you don't need to take that shot there with Nelson Aguilar being the guy you're trying to find in double coverage. Mm-hmm. And Nelson, I feel like, has got to fight for that ball a little bit more to try to break that up. But bottom line, it shouldn't have been thrown. You're absolutely right. I think Carson's just, they knew. As much as these guys will try to say, well, they're another team in the NFL, we got to play it down by down. They knew they were going to need some big plays to hang with the Saints. And I think Carson was taking a shot there to try to make something happen. Ill-advised, and that's something he's got to learn from.
Scott Grayson's grades are posted right now at 97.3ESPN.com. Josh Adams with a B, Golden Tate, Nigel Bradham with a D, and everybody else got an F. It's the worst Grayson's grades ever. Let me ask you this.
Professor Grayson, I don't want to take your class.
Do you have a feel or thought that the team gave up yesterday?
I don't think they gave up. I think that, quite frankly, they were worn down. Everybody on defense, look at the play count difference. I mean, I don't have it right in front of me, but I know I was tracking that during the game. That defense was on the field a lot. You look at the injuries taking a toll, perhaps even on the defensive line. Fletcher Cox, I think, is gassed. He's had to play a whole lot more snaps this year than he had to before. They desperately need Tim Jernigan to get back. They desperately would have been able to have Derek Barnett be more involved. Look, Chris Long's even playing more snaps than he's used to. I think that defensive line, you look at why they were getting no pass rush, I think these guys are gassed. And there's no help in sight other than maybe Jernigan coming back. But I don't know that pass rush is going to get back to what it was last year. And the run defense, as a result, I think that's part of the reason, too, those guys being gassed is why they're giving up yards on the ground. And it's just – it all starts there. I said this yesterday. I tweeted it yesterday at one point. They were losing the battle at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and look at the effect it had. They've got to fix that, too.
Go ahead.
Going back to the interception that Carson threw, I would have thought, Scott, all week that the coaching point from Doug and the offensive coaches was that they've got to be able to play ball control offense and keep the ball out of Drew Brees' hand and matriculate the ball down the field and to not take a shot unless it's just like a blown coverage and wide open or you really feel like you've got an angle there because, again, you're trying to work the ball down the field a certain way. Do you think Carson is this a case of a guy being hard-headed, or do you believe that in talking to guys that maybe Doug's voice does not resonate the same this year for whatever reason with all the players?
No, it's interesting you brought that up. I kind of it's because you saying that really jogged my memory too on that beginning of the game. Yeah, I agree with you. Ball control would have been, I would have thought, a key to keeping the Saints offense off the field. And that begs the question of why did they come out in an up-tempo offense as well?
Right.
It's like, what do you know, let's hurry up and go 3 and out. I mean, you gotta try to, like you said, get something going on offense. I guess you could argue, well, it was different than what they've done in the past, but it produced the same result. But yeah, I would have agreed in that sense as well. Like, let's just try to move the chains. Let's try to generate some 10-play drives. Maybe we walk away with a field goal, but at least we gave our defense a chance to. And as the game went on, and that, like I said, that defense was getting gashed and gassed at the same time. Don't you need to give those guys a break? I mean, they were out there so frequently, and they didn't even get a chance to really sit on the side because you would go 3 and out on offense, and now here they are again. That first quarter, that defense was on the field a ton and just getting worn down. And yeah, I don't understand whether that's a product of Doug or whether that's a product of Carson. It's probably a little of both, and they've got to figure out together a way to get back to a little bit more of where they were. I've said that I think Frank Reich and John DeFilippo deserve a lot more credit than I initially may have given them for the success this team had last year. That being said, you know, Doug and Carson went through it. They understood some of the methods to that, and they've got to find a way to get back to at least somewhere in the neighborhood of where they were a year ago.
Get the full grades at 973ESPN.com. Thanks, Scott. Safe trip back.
All right. Thanks, guys.